So back in the day, whenever I would tell somebody that I was a guitar player, their first question would almost always be, well, what kind of music do you play? And I thought that that was the easiest question in the world. You see, I never really too heavily defined myself by just one genre. I definitely had the genres that I leaned towards, like blues and worship, but usually I was way more likely to define myself by the genres that I, well, refused to play. And in terms of responding to that big question, I would always have my answer prepared. Without question, I would look them straight in the eyes and I would say, I play basically everything but like country and metal. You see, those were the genres that at the time I just couldn't get behind. I had it in my mind that metal was unmelodic and country, well, it just wasn't for me. And I really thought that that was never going to change. That is, until I happened upon this one riff from this Nashville artist who seemed to be blowing up at the time, but probably more for his country ballads than his guitar playing. I mean, this dude was collabing with artists like Jason Mraz and Echo Smith, definitely worlds that I had not dipped my toes into, but I decided to give it a try. I mean, why not? So I start listening to him play, and song after song, I quickly come to realize that this guy is way more than just a songwriter or even a one riff wonder. When it comes to guitar, he can absolutely shred on like a pretty sophisticated country level. I mean, I was watching these long clips of him taking improvised solos, being so blown away by just how good his phrasing was and just how melodic he was. Oh, and by the way, if I didn't mention yet, his name happens to be Hunter Hayes. And as with a lot of artists, once I started to realize just how good of a guitarist he was, I started to lean a lot more into his live work. I wanted to see if his licks would translate and if in the process I could maybe gain some inspiration. And whilst doing this, I ended up finding this performance that he did from the Honda stage, where he and his band seemed to be doing the normal set list, but something to me just seemed like a little bit off. And I knew exactly what it was. You see, like a lot of my favorite players, not just in the country realm, I had known him to be a Strat guy. But this performance in particular, the guitar looked just a little bit different. It had this blue body with a roasted maple neck, but the body shape, that's where it really hit because it was just a little bit different from what I was used to. So I looked it up and it turns out that outside of just Fender and G&L, Leo had also been a part of this little company called Music Man. And they made these things called the Cutlass, which were the guitars that I'd seen Hunter Hayes playing. But that isn't necessarily where I stopped. I kept doing my research, come to find out that much like Leo's first company, they weren't just one single entity. They had a lot of their lower tier models under the name Sterling. And that's where I eventually decided, why don't I give one of these guys a try? But this is where it gets really interesting because my first inclination, it was not at all to try out one of the Cutlass models. You see, one of my favorite guitar players on the planet, James Valentine, happened to have a signature Sterling, and I knew that was exactly where I wanted to start. So once the guitar ended up getting here, I immediately noticed that there was one thing about it that was unlike any of the Strats that I had played before. It had a push-pull, but in this case, it wasn't a push-pull like a coil split or even a phase switch. It was a mid-boost. And as I started looking online, it turns out a lot of their guitars happen to have this feature, specifically one that had been growing on me more and more over time called the CT50 Plus, one that they had very recently released. So I decided to check it out to see how it would compare to like my other Strat style guitars. It had a really flat neck, which was very different from all the Strats I had been used to playing at the time. And also it was my first real step into this world of like more hyper modernized S-style guitars. It became a real winner for me in terms of Sterling, and I really appreciated just how different it was from everything I had tried before. However, even though I really liked it, I knew deep down that my favorite Sterling was always going to be the James Valentine model, and that was never going to change. It is until one day online I found that they were releasing this new guitar, and it looked different from both the Valentine and the Cutlass. The pickups were different, the color looked different. It reminded me a lot of a guitar that I had seen get really big with some of the indie players that I had been following for a while. One that they had just very recently released, so I decided to check it out to see how it would compare to like my other Strat style guitars, and it felt very refreshing. It's been a minute. It's been quite a minute since we looked at one of these. I guess it's time to see what we got. I'm hoping it comes with a case, but the last one didn't. First look, make or break right here. Time to face the music. Usually I absolutely hate the matching headstock body, but I think this works for me. Also, locking tuners, very pleasant surprise. I literally can't wait to plug this thing in. So ladies and gentlefish, this right here is a Sterling Stingray Plus. A guitar that originally stood out to me because, like I was saying before, it reminded me of a Novo Series J, a guitar that's currently played by one of my favorite artists working right now, a girl named Soccer Mommy. And yes, you heard that name correctly. But outside of that, the P90s are really what caught my attention. You see, when you have a body shape like this that's just a little bit different from a Strat, and you put single coils in there, you can still very clearly see the inspiration. But when you put P90s in there, it's like it becomes a complete other thing in itself. And on top of that, you have the rosewood neck with the 12-inch radius, and also matching the headstock to the body color, which usually is very hit or miss for me, but for some reason, this really worked. But obviously there was more than just the looks that I wanted to check out. I realized that outside of a lot of the Gibsons and the Epiphones that I've played over the years, I haven't actually spent a lot of time with P90s, like really getting to know the sound, and well, this seemed like a good place to start. All right, so here's how we're gonna mic everything up, because it's gonna be just a hair different today because I was feeling a different type of flavor. Amp-wise, we're gonna be going with the Simplifier. Very simple setup, DIN, XLR out, and overdrive, it's also gonna be very simple. We're gonna be using the Warm Audio Centavo as well as the SD1 because I felt more creative than using a tube screamer. Okay, so we gotta talk about the pickups, which is really where I got to know this thing. And I'm not even talking about the mid boost yet, which we'll get to in a second. It has a 3-way, nothing out of the norm, but my big question was how I was actually gonna utilize it and if I even had the right expectations going in. From what was being described to me by friends and also what I was looking up on Google, a big part of this sound is the supposed biting mid-range. And I could really feel that. But the other thing that I was really noticing was that this was a lot brighter than the P90 sound that I was used to from the Les Paul. What I really liked was that brightness never really turned to harshness, especially once I started playing through the bridge pickup a little bit more. I had to dial back the tone just a little bit, maybe 20%, but once I got what I wanted, I was like, okay, we're cooking. Okay, so now we have to get to the mid boost, which is a big part of what put this over the edge for me because the battery in my original Cutlass actually died. So I had forgotten for a long time about what the mid boost was actually supposed to do. So this felt like rediscovering it all over again. I had forgotten not just how it was supposed to sound, but just how unsubtle this was. I mean, this isn't just some light, clean boost. This is 12 dBs of gain, and you notice it instantly. I mean, listen to this. So So the way that I would usually use this in the live setting was during the big solo moments when I really wanted to push things a little bit over the edge. I would just click the mid boost and just power into those big solo moments. But I think I neglected the potential for some of the rhythm work that this has, especially when there was no boost or distortion actively going on this. Some of the best tones I got on here, I felt like, were when I had the mid boost up and I would roll the volume back just a hair. And I could have everything on the edge of breakup or maybe just pushed a little bit more and thinking to myself like, why didn't I think of this earlier? So at the end of the day, what did we learn? And I think it's very simple. At least for me, I think I found the line where something is no longer in any way a Strat. And what I mean by that is, going into this, the guitar that I had my reference to was the Sterling CT50 Plus, that first initial Strat style guitar. I still effectively define that as a Strat, maybe even a super Strat, depending on your definition. But once you had changed up both the body shape and put P90s in there, the Stingray Plus, in my mind, in no way sounds like a Strat, in no way is a Strat, and that's the thing I like most about it, which is what made it, without question, my favorite guitar that I've played from Sterling thus far. And it's not that close. It sounds different, it feels different, and it reminds me that a lot of affordable guitars aren't just getting better, because that's the thing that we focus on a lot of the times. Do these guitars for the price punch above their weight class? Do they sound as good as the more expensive ones? But a lot of the times what I want to know is, are they as creative as some of the more expensive ones? And this is the first guitar that I've seen in a long time. It doesn't just sound really good like something like the CT50, which, like I said, I really like, but this feels really refreshing. But I don't think it really matters what I think or what I love. What matters is what you think. Have you played a Sterling guitar? What's your favorite one? Have you played any of the Music Mans? Do you like the Stingray Cutlass shape? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I think I've been playing this guitar for a little bit under a month now, and I hadn't seen a single person review it or talk about it. So I really did feel like I had this like best kept secret that Sterling had out, especially like we said with the P90s and with just how creative they got with the build. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do next with this, especially in the case of like Ernie Ball Music Man and their higher end guitars, if they're thinking of making a P90 version, because I haven't checked out one of those either. But if they do, it literally might be game over for me. But in the meantime, if you want to know anything more about the Sterling Stingray Plus, you can get it from the homies at Sweetwater. I'll have all of the links in the description. Make sure to check them out. It's one of the best ways to support the channel if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of the other gear that I use in this video, amps, pedals, even the camera, make sure to check out those links. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. There's some extra exclusive content on there if you want to join the community. Like and subscribe if you had a good time. And most importantly, like most important of all, have a fantastic night.